So you would say, yeah, it is worth doing in those sort of situations. David, what do you reckon to that?
I think these bigger events, especially the ones that include the public, can really work for you, and you can find new fans, but equally you can find like-minded bands who you like, so you're not only thinking about playing your own show, but you're thinking about going to everyone else's show as well, and you find, oh, here's a band from Norway who sound really like us and are really into our music, and by doing things like that, you can open connections and maybe get yourself a tour in Germany or wherever, and use it in other ways to sort of create opportunities for the future. I mean, it's interesting that we haven't mentioned the Reeperbahn Festival in Hamburg.
I was going to come to that, because I mean that's one of the new ones that's really sort of emerged in the past 5 years, isn't it? It's only been 5 years.
Why it's really important to me is Germany is a very big country with a big touring circuit, and as a band, if you can open into that market and get a touring circuit happening in Germany, that gives you something approaching a career. So to look at other countries like that and think what the opportunities are is really, really important, I think.
I mean, the Reeperbahn is becoming the one in Germany to cover now, I think. I think Popcorn, after last year... the year before it didn't go ahead, did it? Taking a year out as well. I mean, I think the Reeperbahn is just still its thunder, really.
When it comes to looking at what a festival can offer or what an event can offer, I mean, one of the things that occurred to me, and I'm an old lazy bastard, but I mean, basically, if I'm at an event, and this is what started to happen in Berlin when Popcorn moved there, I'm like, man, I can't be fucking arsed crossing the city to go and see one band. And from a band's perspective, obviously, if you're stuck out in a venue in the back of Beyond, you're not going to get that many people coming to see you. I mean, it's bad enough in Inverness when you've got a band on in the Ironworks, and people don't want to walk for 5 minutes because it's a bit further removed from the other venues. But I mean, that's an extreme example. But the thing is, what I notice with South by Southwest, you have loads of gigs concentrated in one street. Reeperbahn Festival, you never really walk more than 10 minutes from one venue to the next. And in a way that makes it a much more pleasant experience, and a cheaper experience, because you don't have to get taxis or anything like that.
It's the same with Eurosonic, and that's what makes it so good. I mean, so many people want to be the next by Southwest, but unless you have that infrastructure where you've got a load of decent venues close together that people can easily get in between, it's never going to happen.
And I think that's why Bilam stayed in Oslo, because it used to go around all around Norway, and it's because you've got like the majority of the venues are concentrated in one area. There are some examples where you've got to get a reindeer and two, but
I'll go up a mountain.
Yeah, you would up a mountain.
I mean, the whole thing is, I think you've got to take it in stages. I would suggest if anybody's really thinking of going to these things, don't try and get your band in there the first time. Send your manager and a member of the band to go and check it out first. Find out how it works. There is a lot, I think there's a directory to be written about these things, which is don't go through that main door. There's a door 3 to the left. You always find out something, another approach to what's going on. You find out by talking to local people and whatever. And then decide what you're going to go in and do. And if you go in and do one showcase, I think we should discuss the term showcase at some point. If you go in and do one, plan some other things around it. Don't just think your shop window is going to work. That's all it is a shop window. And a lot of people don't walk past your shop window. You've got to do some other things. Ducky Souness was always good with that. I remember you'd go to South by Southwest, there'd be a Scottish band playing, and suddenly there'd be 4 or 5 other gigs out and around Austin that were lined up. You've got to plan it, plan it as the base date for a tour. In some cases, it's not going to be a full tour, but if you can do anything else, just go and do it, because you won't get it. Even the people that plan to come to the showcase, the number of times I've had my schedule written out and it's ripped up by 7:30 because something's distracted you the whole way, and you mean to do these things. South by Southwest and a lot of these other things are full of conversations at breakfast about the things you didn't see. And what you've got to do is actually try and give people enough of an opportunity to be something that they did see.
Go along to in the advance of going to an event, I mean, you'd say then you make sure if you can, I mean, sometimes it's not going to happen like that. Sometimes someone will be like, your band's great, they've been chosen, you're coming over. I mean, are there other signs, are there other things that you should look out for in terms of gauging what an event's going to be like? Or
checking out the panel, you know, and if the panel might have some big stars, like the head of major record companies, but you don't think that's where your music lies, but there's another smaller conference that's got more interesting panelists and from some of their smaller, cooler indie labels, then go to that one, because that's going to be more relevant to you. It might be smaller, and it's probably going to be cheaper for you as well. I wanted to say one thing about the directory. You just mentioned the directory, and it's not in the same term, but if you do actually end up going to or attending a music conference, make sure you use the tools that are available to you. And one of those are the online directory there. You know, just go through it and make contacts via that. Because, you know, a lot of work that I do from my business is done through that. You know, so you've got to make sure you use the tools that are available to you.
One of the other things that, and again, I think Alan's advice of sending somebody along or just actually going along to the event first off to see what it's like, check out everything, because some of these festivals, I ain't going to say which ones or whatever, but it absolutely drives me insane, is that the band will be given a time slot of, say, their time is between 8 and 9, and the band go out there and work their asses off, pushing, promoting that show, and they end up getting to the show, it overruns, and they're not on stage until gone 9:30 at night. So it's a complete waste of time for everybody, for the band, because they've worked to try and get people down to the show. People have gone to look at that, mapped out that they want to go see that band, but they've got other bands to go. So they end up going to see a band that they didn't want to see and having to go off and try and catch another band. And it's something that absolutely drives me insane, because ever since we started goNorth, we have one golden rule with all the stage managers: the bands go on stage on time and they're off stage on time to the best of our ability without any technical problems. But it's something that it's just a complete waste of time for everybody.
So, I mean, how can you preempt problems? I mean, presuming you've not been able to go across the world to check out an event, you know, if you can't do that, I mean, I think it's a great suggestion if you can do it, but if you can't do it, what kind of steps could you take to make sure things do run smoothly? I mean, what kind of areas are there for doing your homework and preempting any disasters?
I think you go talk to people who've been to that. If you obviously, and again, great point, you can't always afford to go do that, but there's plenty of advice out there of people who have actually been and played that event, or people such as Allan, who's been to probably every event there is, and there's organisations that sort of Scottish Arts Council, now Creative Scotland, have put events on in various different places where you can get advice. There's advice out there if you go looking for it.
I think it's worth mentioning as well that as a band or a manager, you need to be working a long way in advance thinking about these things. You need to be thinking 12 to 18 months up front. What's coming up? How do I get on the list? How do I submit my demo? What can I do to make it more likely that I will get chosen? Because obviously a load of demos go into a box somewhere, but if you know someone who works at that festival and you can get in touch with them and approach them like that, it's going to increase your chances of getting chosen for the bigger ones. So,
Also, if you're applying to a lot of showcase festivals or these conferences you're not getting on, a word of advice I think you should do is do your own. Engage with your local music community, get half a dozen bands together, get some interesting people that work in your own area of music, your local radio, and just put your own event on. And from there, you can then maybe you apply next to the next event. You can say then you've already appeared at an event, and engage in your own local music industry.
I mean, I know that people that have done goNorth have ended up signing major publishing and record deals in the past. A lot of bands that do stuff like Beeline get picked up for festivals. I mean, a lot of the events do lead on to other things, but I mean, are you aware of any kind of events where that is more likely to happen, where you really have got a good chance of it leading to something else?
All events have that potential, as long as you've decided beforehand what you want out of that event. You can't, there's this awful phrase that gets used around all the countries being export ready. But it's true, you know, you can't just sort of like, if you've played a few gigs around Scotland or whatever, and your band's still pulling itself together, you're not right to go. You know, you've got to get to a point where your people are interested in you, they're interested in your material online or whatever. You've already built something in an area you're going to. Don't ever think you can just go there and say, hey, it's us, we're great. Yeah. Occasionally, a bolt of lightning might strike, but it's not. You've got to actually be sure of why you're going, and your meetings should be pre-arranged to the point where if you're going to get a meeting, if you're going to get a deal, the deal is in discussion before you go there, and anything else you pick up is absolute bunts, and it does happen, but you've got to have that sense of purpose and that sense of direction. It's a sense of direction. You know, in doing these things. They're not expected. It's like any other industry, really. You have to plan it. You have to plan it.
I mean, so a lot of people here, they're probably not at the stage where they know tons of folk. And I mean, I have to say that I do go to events and know a lot of people, and I get dragged to some really fucking bad shows, yeah. And you know, I've got mates that they're really, that's even worse because they're your friends that are managing the band, or they're promoting the gig, or you know, you've got a journal pal that's, oh yeah, you got to see this lot, and you're like, oh no, it's terrible. What am I going to say? You usually try and escape before you have to sort of invent something polite to say. And a lot of the time, I've come across stuff that isn't on this sort of buzz radar. There's not a hype about it. I might, you know, I've quite arbitrarily picked out stuff because I like a band's name, or, you know, alternatively, I had one band the first time I was at a gig in Norway, and they buttonholed me. I mean, the singer told me many years later they actually looked me up in the program and knew who I was. But I didn't realize that at the time. I was like, oh, these guys are nice. They've given me a T-shirt. And then I got drunk with them after the gig and missed my flight and, you know, hung out with them again. But I mean, that kind of thing, it's quite a straightforward way of working it and getting noticed outside. But I mean, what kind of practical suggestions would you have for artists and managers that, you know, do go to these things and do want to get people to come to the shows that might actually be already getting dragged somewhere by their good connections?
I can give you a good example of a show I went to at South by Southwest this year where there is a lot of demand for your attention, but this band called For a Minor Reflection from Iceland. They emailed me the week before the gig via Topspin, using the tools to get out to the fans, saying, we're on tour in North America, here are our dates. 2 days before South by Southwest, they contacted me via Facebook saying, are you going to be in Austin? Here are the shows we're playing. On the day of the shows, they contacted me again on Facebook saying, these are our stage times. It would be great if you could come down, and just reminding and keeping in people's minds and, you know, actually making them think, oh gosh, they're really working this hard, maybe this is worth going to go and see. It got me to the gig and it was great. So